Muting the Prez is a very hard thing to do. I'm damn curious who you voted for, but obviously we won't discuss that on air, my brother. Welcome back to the show. I know you had internet problems earlier this morning. Hopefully everything will work out perfectly fine. Guys, thank you for joining us. Everybody is muted. The entire show is muted, according to Jessica, Christian, Wes, Eric, B-Daddy. Oh, they can hear us now. Okay. Well, let's bring Ralph Michaels in. Ralph, how are you, my brother? What's going on?
Doing great, guys. Always love starting my Wednesday morning with Prez and Teddy.
Well, you know what, Ralph? We love starting the Wednesday morning with you as well. Before we get into Ralph, I got to just quickly shout out myself. I got a very rare play tonight, guys, a 4% NHL money line bet. Very, very rare. I've had 10 of these, 10 in a year and a half of betting NHL, and I'm 8-2. I'll tell you guys about it a little later. But come on, man. Who gave out the under in a college football game last night that ended up 9-3? Who? This guy. Who gave out the over in the Pittsburgh game free on the show? Who? This guy. So as a thank you, let's go grab my 4% NHL play. Ralph Michaels, sorry to hijack there. I'm a little bit excited. How are you, dude? Let's start again. Let's start from the beginning. You're doing good. You're kicking ass.
I want to say this. Thank you to everyone that took part of the $5 play for yesterday. Prez, I was on that same game, and La Tech actually outgained their foe as a 9.5-point dog. I am watching on the phone because I can't stand watching those late close games. My ESPN game centers shows that Jacksonville State returned a touchdown on a fumble with 30 seconds to go that would have failed to cover. I went to bed, threw my phone against the wall, and found out that touchdown was not valid, and it was not called a fumble return for a touchdown. So it's very nice when those happen.
Yeah, except I wasn't on that game, but a good story nevertheless. I was on La Tech and Sam Houston. Under 45.5, the game ended 9-3. Teddy, that's how you want your bets to go. Just to give you a little heads up. Those are like, yes, thank you. 3-2 to end the first quarter. Yeah, that couldn't have worked out any better. We lost our first hockey game last night, though, in my personal E-League beer-drinking hockey game. Ralph, let's start with the NFL right off the bat, brother. And, this is a game that fascinates me. Look, I don't believe in bad spots for Detroit, not with this coach. And surely it can't be because this is a division rivalry game. But I do, for some reason, kind of hate the spot for Detroit. Green Bay at home as a dog. What are you doing here?
Well, let's remember we have one of the best coaches as far as ATS goes with Green Bay. We're talking about a situation where you look at Green Bay on the season, they're actually number 6, guys, at plus 61 yards per game. Again, that's 6th in the NFL. The Detroit Lions, even with their huge blowout a few weeks ago, are only plus 36 yards per game. So statistically, you're looking at a Green Bay team that is plus 25 yards per game better. We, of course, do have to worry about the Love injury, as you said, or do we? I'm actually okay with Willis in this role. Love has had 7 interceptions, the last few games. He has thrown quite a few picks. And, while Willis started games against Indianapolis and Tennessee, I know that's not the same as the division rival at home, but a nice 74% with a 2-0 ratio. Couple situations I want to talk about here. When two teams each have a win percentage of 75% or higher from game 7 and later. This goes back to 1997, guys. So 2 very quality teams, game 7 and later, if one team is a home dog, they are 68% against the spread. And if they're a small home dog from +1 to +6, they are actually 75% against the spread. Now, I'll mention this as well. Detroit was in the same situation a few weeks ago, and they did win and cover in this system. But teams off a win by 35 points or more and are now a favorite of 3 or more with a total of 50 or less are only 8 and 28, 22.2%. I mentioned LaFleur as a dog, 24 and 11, 68.6%. LaFleur as a home dog, 6 and 2 ATS, 3 and 0 the last 3, and of those 8 games, he's actually pulled the upset 6 times. Love's injury gets a lot of the speaking points, but I actually think Detroit actually is hurt a little bit more with Hutchinson's loss. 7.5 sacks, 17 QB hurries, a forced fumble, TFLs, double-digit TFLs. I think that Hutchinson loss is a big deal. I think Green Bay keeps this game close, perhaps pull the outright upset, but I'll take over a field goal.
Ralph, I'm going to throw to Teddy for a follow-up, but I just want to jump in real quick. You mentioned Green Bay and their ATS record. Dan Campbell took over the Detroit Lions in 2021. Since then, he is 43 and 18 ATS. 43 and 18 ATS. 19 and 8 as a favorite. Are you telling me that Green Bay's ATS record is better than that? I mean, that's freaking like Presman genius. Teddy?
I said as a dog Green Bay's dog. Records are the best. So yes, yeah, you're looking at the best underdog situation.
So I think what Lawrence was trying to ask is, we all know that Detroit is an elite team. All right, this is the best Lions team that I've seen in my 27 football season in Las Vegas. It's really not that close. I think it's the best Lions team I've ever seen. They overcame what was as bad a spot as there is last week to cover 2 touchdowns against Tennessee. Why do we want to step in front of this team?
Well, you know, Teddy, it wasn't their play that got them to beat Tennessee by 28 points or 38 points, whatever they won. They were +4 turnovers. You're going to win games, you're +4 turnovers.
The one thing they had 300 return yards between interceptions, punts, and kickoffs. But that's what they're doing. They're dominating on special teams every week, and that as a flaw for Green Bay, perhaps.
Fair enough. But again, we're talking a division game with a team that is only 2 losses on the year. One was the Philadelphia where they had the yardage edge, and one was the Minnesota by 2 points where they had a 91 yardage edge. To me, yes, Detroit may be the best team in the NFC, but Green Bay just keeps either winning or keeping games close because of their style. So for me, that will overtake the Detroit's special teams edge.
Yeah, and I get it, Ralph. With that said, to me, and we talk about trends and stats every time you come on. You know, I look at this game and I think to myself, there's just no possible way I'm stepping in front of a 43 and 18 ATS run over 5 years. There's just no way. So perhaps that will keep me.
Now, I want to jump in there, Lawrence. If you're going to hijack, I'm going to hijack too, because the 43 and 8, in my mind, that's very much the wrong way to think. And I think this is an important discussion. The 43 and 18 is all in the rearview mirror. If you look at Detroit's next 61 games, they ain't going, or what is it, 59 games, or 61. They ain't going 43 and 18 again. When we look forward, that's all rearview mirror. How do you expect that to continue at that rate?
I'll answer that question. I don't understand the hijacking nonsense. We run a show together and we've been adding value to the show. I'm not taking your bait. You can be an idiot somewhere else. Now, in regards to that question, Teddy, Steve Merrill and I did Wager Talk last call on Sunday, and a lot of the people were saying this is a bad spot for Detroit. They've got Tennessee up. They're not going to care. They're just going to want to get out of Dodge. They got Green Bay up next. It's one of those sandwich, look-ahead positions, blah, blah, blah.
I bet the Titans last week. I know all the reasons to play Detroit. Go on.
Right.
How does this make what's Detroit's spread record going to be the next 61 games?
To that
or the next 16 games?
My response to that statement was, there ain't no look-ahead spot when Dan Campbell is your coach. This guy has an ability to motivate his players at a level that we haven't seen before. This
Right. You
guy
still haven't answered the question.
cries when he loses. He flexes when he wins. Do I think they're going to go 43-18 again? No. Do I think they're going to cover a huge amount continuously? Yes, I do. There is a reason that Dan Campbell is 43-18 ATS. That is a huge amount of games. This guy gets the best out of his players in the past, and he will get the best out of his players in the future.
Last comment on this, and then we'll move on. But the reason that Dan Campbell's so good as the Lions head coach ATS is because the Lions had stunk for 20 years when he got there. And they were going from the very bottom to an elite contender. And that's when you go 43-18.
19-8 is a favorite.
At 43-18, you've gone 43-18 ATS. I predict the Lions moving forward much closer to 500 than what we've seen over the last 4 years.
Well, they're
Ralph,
definitely
we're running time. Let's talk.
Okay, Teddy, fine. We can agree to disagree, but I agree with you that they're not going to go 43-18 again. I mean, that is an insane number, but whatever the case may be, they're 19-8 as a favorite, and that doesn't account for how bad they were 5 years ago. Ralph Michaels, LA Clippers, they're playing Portland tonight, my friend, and we've got a -8.5 for the 2-1 Clippers. 218.5 is the total. How are you betting this game?
Well, let me start by saying this. If you head to WagerTalk Today, do not buy my $25 package because this is the play. If you already did buy the play this morning on the Clippers, hey, just email customer service. They'll give you a credit for me. Again, this is an actual client release. Boy, you know what? The Clippers' expectations, they were so excited about opening up Intuit Dome. But, with Kawhi's injury, that's now going to drag on for a few weeks, and Paul George having signed elsewhere, the expectations weren't great. So what do? The first night of opening their new dome, they have a 9-point lead against Denver with 3:52 left. They blow that lead, lose in overtime, but they do cover. They then go on the road and win back-to-back games as a 7.5 and a 9-point dog at Denver and Golden State. Folks, that is not easy in back-to-back games. And in fact, only 16 times since 2000 has an NBA team pulled back-to-back upsets as a dog of 7 or more. FYI, those teams, when they're a favorite by 3 or more the next game, have gone 7-5 against the spread. So very small sample size, nothing huge, nothing small. But what I do like is the Clippers defense. They held Denver to 40.2% shooting. They held Golden State to 43.2% shooting. I look at the Trailblazers. They're near the very bottom. They're shooting only 42% on the season. They've only topped 42% shooting in one game. And when I have teams like the Clippers off back-to-back wins as a dog, and they have more rest than their opponent, as a favorite or a dog, the +3, they are 75% against the spread. They have dominated this foe with 9 straight wins, including going 6-3 ATS. The Clippers, off that first loss, do not let their foot off the gas in their second ever game at the Intuit Dome. And I do like them against this Portland team. Remember, this Portland team was 21-61 last year? They have some work to do. Give me the Clippers tonight, minus the 8.5, as they go to 4-0 against the spread this young start to the season.
If he's playing, he's laying. Minus 8.5 with LA. And being that it's a client play, that means he's playing. So he's laying. Ralph Michaels, you got a chart for us talking about NBA teams on the second of back-to-backs. This is something I'm interested in. And, of course, anyone who's betting NBA out there should know this info. Post it, Ralph. What do we got?
Well, this is going back since 2021. So the 21, 22, 23, and the current 24 season. It is NBA teams with no rest against a team with at least 1 day rest. You see the blue number on the top is when you're playing the second of back-to-back games at home. You see there 45.8%. But take a look at the breakdowns, guys. If you are off a home win, you're 44%. If you're off an away win, 45%. If you're off an away loss, 38.5%. So no rest NBA teams at home. If you are off a home loss playing with no rest, you're 53.2%. Every other situation is a 57.1% fade against those home teams. When you look at road teams with no rest, they're 50.9% ATS. So basically break even. Any of those scenarios stick out? If you're off a home win or off a home loss, you're basically right around 50%. But if you're off an away loss and you're playing a second straight road game, you're actually 55.4% against the spread. So just some situations to look out. Very general chart, but it does show you no rest at home has been a fade, except if the team is off a home loss.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, to me, the home team off an away loss at 38% certainly stands out, as does the away team off an away loss. It's the two numbers at the bottom of those charts that are the ones that I'm most interested in off of this, Ralph, and something that we can all use for our capping when we look at the database research, which shows us how the long-term angles flow. Ralph, what do you have to promote, my friend? What's going on at WagerTalk.com or WT.buzz/RM?
My totals have been doing well in college football. I've got 2 games circled that are potential 5%. I'll be posting those later tonight. Like I said, I only have 1 play up there today, and it is free, so nothing for you guys to buy. But keep an eye out for the football this weekend and look for a college football 5%, likely loaded by tonight, no later than tomorrow morning.
Ralph Michaels, everyone, what a pleasure to have you on, my friend. Keep kicking ass, Ralph. Well done. Teddy Covers, what did the bettors learn?
I don't know what this bettor learned. This is what I learned yesterday. Early voting for me it's a no-brainer. All right. Let's wait in line for an hour on election day or not wait in line during the week. Your vote counts the same. Obviously, I'm going to vote. And of course, if you're in a state like Florida, California, Texas, where sports betting is limited or non-existent, vote sports betting. If it's an issue that interests you, you're watching this show, I'm assuming that you do. And this isn't about who I voted for. Vote for whoever you want for. That's the beauty of democracy. So I'm walking in, and the election volunteers greet you and point you. The dude up front, his name was John. I forgot his last name. Sorry. He's like, "Hey, I know you. You're Ted Savransky." I never feel like I'm anybody, dude. Certainly not like a celebrity. And it's always, I mean, sometimes in the sports books, when I'm in the sports books, people will recognize me. People say, "Hey, Teddy, what's going on?" Or this, that. Just about every time I'm there. But not in real life. Not when you're at the voting booth. And I guess I'm doing these TV gigs now in Vegas on Fox 5. So everywhere I go, I'm on a D list on a good day. So I can get a comp from the sports book now. But whatever. 99.9% of people aren't going to recognize me. I'm no star. But John, the election worker or the election volunteer, flattered you, Prez. He flattered me. Talked about how great we were. All that he loves our content. And I love it when people come up and say, "Hey, I like what you do on air." Even complimented you, Prez, which is, we don't hear it.
Even.
But thanks, John. Great to hear. Does that ever happen to you, Lawrence, when you're out and about in Toronto? Does anyone ever say, "Hey, I see you on Wager Talk"?
Yes.
Is it flattering? What do you do when that happens?
Yeah. So firstly, it happens to me in many different places. I mean, not often, Teddy, but I used to do a lot of television in Canada on the two sports networks, TSN and Sportsnet, and a lot of the golf clubhouses would have them running in the background permanently. So that was like where I was recognized the most. But interestingly enough, they don't recognize me. They recognize my voice.
Sure.
So I have people come up to me, "Are you the Prez?" And they were like behind me and just hearing me yap. So, and yes, I love it, bro. And everybody who's ever come up to me has nothing but great words. So, I'm greatly appreciative of you guys taking the time to say hi. And Teddy and I are normal guys, man. Like, honest to God, I mean, there is zero celebrity in either of us. I mean, I'm a freaking edible eating, germ ratting, golfing, sport betting lunatic. Like, I'm as normal as it gets. What's up, Teddy? I know you want to talk.
Well, two things. We have Hard Out today, so we got to move along. And second, we appreciate the likes very much. We appreciate the follows very much. We appreciate the comments very much. Even if you're not able to say hello to us in person, do it in the comments. And I go check the comments just about every day, Prez. I don't always respond, but I'm checking and looking to see what people are saying. So thanks, guys. Really. Thank you.
Yeah. Teddy, we're going to run to your big game breakdown in a second, and then we're going to have a long extended Art DiCesare. But before we get into that, I do want to make mention again, and I was real, Teddy, I did something sneaky at the top of the show. Ralph Michaels is one of those guys that he has his hand on the brick at WagerTalk. He can set the brick. Who gets to be the most promoted guy? So I hijacked his segment to tell you guys that I had a huge 4% play up tonight because I wanted him to hear it. So now that I've had some breathing room, guys, in all seriousness, I got a 4% play in NHL. I freaking love this is probably my favorite play this year in hockey. That's how much I love this play. And I'm 5-1 in these money line NHL bets this season. I'm 8-2 in 2 years of these 4% NHL money line bets. Please head over to WagerTalk and take advantage of how I'm doing in these plays. Okay, Theodore, let's go to your big game breakdown, and then we'll bring Art DiCesare in.
Absolutely. Let me just check the current line right now to make sure I've got an accurate number for you, because it was bouncing around a little bit this morning, but not very much. Big game breakdown style. Let's talk about the Oregon Ducks traveling to Ann Arbor to take on the Michigan Wolverines. Right now, looking at the free WagerTalk live on screen. And what a resource. It's free. And you get odds from a whole bunch of different books. You can see how the lines are moving, and you can get an idea. Do I bet this now? Do I wait until closer to kickoff? So right now, Ducks 15-45.5 against the Wolverines. And my first question in this game, how does Michigan score? The first Wolverines team total that I saw was 14.5 juice to the under. Oregon's allowed more than 14 only twice in 8 games, Ohio State and Boise. Then again, those two teams both got in the 30s against this defense, and Oregon was at home in those games. And they haven't faced anybody tough on the road. At Purdue, at UCLA, at Oregon State. Can't ask for a weaker road slate than that for a Power 4 conference team. None of those teams are good. And when we look at some of the point spreads, they were minus 18.5 against Oregon State, and now they're minus 15 in Ann Arbor. So there's a fair bit of built-in respect for the Ducks in this point range. That being said, Oregon's really freaking good. Dan Lanning's team's not kidding around. The number 12 offense in the country. They're averaging more than 300 yards per game through the air. They have a Heisman Trophy candidate in Dylan Gabriel, who would love to put on a show in this ballgame. You've got elite receivers. What do we got? Tez Johnson, Everett Stewart. We got elite running backs and Jordan James and Noah Whittington. They're number 7 in the nation in third down conversions, 50% third down conversions. They're top 50 in turnover margin. They've only given the ball away 5 times all year. This is a really good team. That's why they're laying 2 touchdowns. Michigan's 2-6 ATS. They have no betting bandwagon. Then again, it was 1-6 before last week, when 17 first downs, 265 total yards, and 22 minutes of possession was enough to get to 24 points against Sparty. I don't know if that will happen twice this year for Michigan. Their offense didn't really work that well. The successful thing the offense did was Alex Orji taking direct snaps and running. It's a limited offense. They hung 30 versus Fresno on opening day and haven't reached 30 since. Now, they were home dogs against USC, and they're able to win that game without basically any passing at all, just running the football. They were home dogs against Texas. They lost by 19 because they couldn't run the football, non-competitive. The defense was good enough to keep them from a ridiculously bad beatdown, but it wasn't like Michigan was ever in that ballgame. What concerns me the most about Michigan in this ballgame, last week, they entered play with the number 9 rushing defense in the country. And you know what happened last week? Michigan State just handed the ball off and ran it down their throats. And I know they didn't cover in the end. And only scored 17 points. They were stuffed at the goal line. There were other issues with the Spartans, but they ran the football effectively against that Michigan defense. And if Oregon's running the football effectively here against Michigan, the Wolverines are in trouble because Michigan ain't trading points with anyone. And it's worth noting, Ralph Michaels gave me a little tidbit that makes sense if you like the Oregon side, and that's the way I'm looking here. Teams like Michigan as a double-digit conference home dog off a conference win, 48-85 against the spread, 34.6% long-term. So if I'm playing, I'm laying Oregon or pass for this better. Again, we appreciate the likes, the follows, and the comments very much. Check out my page, wt.buzz/TC for all the packages this weekend. Prez, back to you, my friend. And you're muted. You muted yourself.
Nope. I'm not muted.
Not anymore. You were muted for a second. So
I guess Dan mutes me. Dan muted me. Daniel's son, we're going to look at that. You want to mess with that? Art DiCesare, do you agree with Teddy's take on this Oregon Michigan game, and what type of bets are you taking on it?
Yeah, I mean, I could never take Michigan. Michigan has just shown you nothing. I mean, outside of that USC game. And, you know, Oregon has gotten better, I think, as the year has gone on. There was a lot of panic early in the season. They didn't look great, but they've done nothing but get better. This is a game that really hasn't seen a ton of action. It's actually, I know there's a ton of games, but it's not that great of a college slate outside of Ohio State, Penn State, and the action is, you know, few far and in between, really, on a lot of movement on games. I mean, some stuff has moved, but I don't know. It's a weird week with games.
Art DiCesare joining us from the Westgate. We love and we love Art. And Art, Teddy's going to take the segment over, but let's start right off the bat. So Steve Merrill and I yesterday were talking about how good did the public do in the NFL week last week? How good did the books do? And I think the general consensus out there is that the public crushed you guys. And I thought to myself, really? I don't think they were on Indy. I don't think they were on the Pats. I don't think they were on, you know, the public was on Jacksonville or Washington. I know that a lot of wise guys were making moves in that direction, but did the public really kick your ass last Sunday?
No, and I think you hit on a bunch of the games. You know, Jacksonville and the Colts for us were nothing but sharp action. You know, that was even the Browns early in the week. You know, we saw a lot of Browns money at 10.5 and 10. That thing closes 8.5. So it was basically sharp money. Now, outside of the Ravens losing, there was a lot of money lines that still had, you know, a lot of legs to them. So, you know, the Ravens obviously blew up some money line parlays, but, you know, the public likes to come in and play the teaser cards and play the money line. So, you know, there was still a fair amount of that as well that we had to fight off. So the public did win in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, the public certainly won with the Lions last week.
Yep.
I got to think that they won with Atlanta. They won with Denver. Let's talk about Denver for a minute. Has Denver got a betting bandwagon yet? Is anyone betting on the Broncos? Are we seeing Broncos action this week in Baltimore? Or has their hot start been pretty well ignored?
I think it's been well ignored probably from the public. I mean, look at that game last week. I mean, that game was at 1.7 and then got up over 10. I mean, now that speaks to how bad Carolina is. We get that. And Carolina was a sharp darling early in the season. But if you look, and you got to play who's in front of you, but if you look at who Denver has beaten, it's really not that great of a list of teams. So obviously we'll see this week. If they step up and play a good game and actually go beat Baltimore, you know, I think the public will start to wake up on Denver. And we've seen Baltimore lay an egg before. They lost to the Raiders.
Yeah. Yeah, and looking at this game specifically, Art, we had 8.5 out there. Now it's 9.5. So where is that line? What is creating that line move? I gotta believe it's sharp money, but why would sharp money be betting on Baltimore at such a big number?
It is, and I know for us, and I can always just speak for us. A lot of times for us, if we move our line, yes, it could be sharp. It could be sharp play. For us, I know on that game we didn't take any sharp money on Baltimore, so we're just moving with the market. You obviously can't sit at 8, 8.5. The whole market's 9.5. You just can't do it. So we obviously moved with the market on that. Really, nothing to report as far as Baltimore sharp money for us.
So when you talk about this week, where are you seeing the early action? Anyone that the pros like, anyone that the Joes like, and of course, got to ask you who you like. Let's talk about week 9 in the NFL.
Absolutely. Let's start with the game tomorrow. Jets were picked. They're now -2. I've had so many people in my life text me. And you got to remember, I'm an East Coast kid, so I got a lot of Jet fans in my life, and people like to gamble as well. They go, how can the 2-6 Jets be favored against the 6-2 Texans? Well, that's a short week, and the Jets, Houston's got problems too because they got some injuries. But the fact that the Jets are -2, I think it shows you all you need to know about that line. So there's been that move. Eagles -6.5. It's now 7.5 against Jacksonville. Jacksonville has no receivers. Browns +3.5 at home against the Chargers, now 2. Colts, we took early money at 6.5, and then the Flacco news breaks, and then there's all sorts of money on Indy. It's now 5. They're at Minnesota. And the Rams, who were a slight dog early in the week, catching 1.5 at Seattle, they're now laying 2 to Seattle. Seattle's been kind of up and down, so that's been the sharp money early in the week. And 2 public plays. Buffalo's going to be huge for us. We need the Dolphins to cover or win outright because Buffalo has been in all the money line parlays, and they're laying 6 with Buffalo, and they're laying 3.5 with the Commanders against my Giants. I think people just feel this magical ride with the Commanders is too good to pass up, and the Giants are a mess.
Art DiCesare. Art, one of our most favorite people on the planet. She's with us every day in the chat room and a long-term subscriber to the Prez, Jessica. Wants to know, why are the Sharps on Tennessee this week? What type of action you getting on this game?
For us, they're not. I can only speak for us once again. They're not for us. So, Jessica, you probably have seen other books move to Tennessee to 3, but that's not for us. Once again, for us, it could have just been a market move.
Yeah, and it's important to note, I was just typing with Prez in the chat back and forth about this. Art represents the Westgate Superbook here in Las Vegas. He does not represent all sports books everywhere. We talk about where lines open and where lines are moving. Sometimes we talk about the broader picture, but what Art can speak to is the action they're getting at the Westgate. He says the 2 public plays that you may want to tap the brakes on a little bit, what they're going to need this weekend. They're going to need Miami, and they're going to need the New York Giants. So if you want those 2, you'll be with the books. Otherwise, take the other sides, you'll be against them. Art, let's talk a little early season NBA/NHL. Let me ask you this. I asked you this last week. Are you seeing any action? Is just the NBA guys betting? Are the public involved? The general public getting involved at all in early season NBA or NHL?
The general public really isn't there yet. But Teddy, because you're an NBA guy who bets it throughout the year. The NBA guys are there night 1. The NHL guys are there. Guys and girls are there night 1. It's just how it is. I'm an NHL bettor. I'm there from night 1 to the end of the season. So, and that's how those sports go. Same thing with college basketball. Same thing with the NHL. We recognize that football, both college and the NFL, the public starts from week 1. They're not waiting till week 7. So it's just the way it goes. And the NBA betting has gotten so much better. It really has. It just keeps growing and growing and growing. We try every day to put more content out there, more props out there, because the prop market is so big now in the NBA. So we are continually trying to grow our NBA betting portfolio.
So, of course, when we talk about the NBA, are there any early season things to note? Are there any teams that the public seems to love or that the wise guys seem to love on a night-in, night-out basis in the NBA? So far, anything from the pros, anything from the Joes, or is still too early to tell?
It is a little too early to tell, but let's talk about a public team because they're always a public team, the Lakers. We know the Lakers are going to be popular, and the Lakers get off to a quick start. And I'm going to talk more in the future respect for a couple of these teams. You start seeing a lot of love for the Lakers in the futures, which We normally, when the season starts, you look at our future book and we lose on the Lakers to win the championship. It wasn't that way this year. You looked at it when the season tipped, and we were actually, if the Lakers, if we stopped taking bets, the Lakers would actually be a winner for us. So it's interesting. You see the Laker fans now jump in with the hot start. And I think you're going to get to the point, especially with Boston, but I think you're going to get there with OKC very soon. Boston is going to be quickly minus money to win the East. And you've already seen OKC trickle under $3, plus $3 to win the West. I think you're going to get real close to them being 2-1. And then as far as the season goes, even further because of all the trade assets and how good they are. And honestly, the West isn't that great. Denver doesn't look that good. Minnesota's a little up and down. OKC and Boston, I think, are clearly the two best teams in the NBA a week into the season.
Art DiCesare. Art, I'm going to use this opportunity to give out an NHL pick for our listeners, and I'd love your thoughts here as well. The Winnipeg Jets have won 8 in a row. Steve Merrill and I were speaking about this yesterday. A team wins 8 in a row, and then they lose a game. What do you do? A team loses 8 in a row, then they win a game. What do you do? Winnipeg is going into Detroit tonight, and the Detroit Red Wings are, give or take, around plus 140. I like the Red Wings a lot here. Any thoughts on this game and anything else you like in the NHL card? And then Teddy will talk college football with you.
No, you're right, Prez. It's interesting. And we saw, the Maple Leafs flip in that game that they lost to a slight favorite in that Winnipeg game, Winnipeg's first loss. That was basically Winnipeg slightly favored, and then it flipped, and obviously the Maple Leafs had to hold off the Jets for the win. You're right, Prez. Now it's like, all right, they got to go on the road. They finally got their loss. Like, what do you do? And, Detroit's pretty resilient and pretty scrappy. I'm with you. I couldn't lay the big number with Winnipeg. It would either be take Detroit or pass for me. If you look at some of the games tonight, a lot of games overnight that were basically pick-em games, minus 110 both ways. Knights were minus 110 at the Kings. Kings played last night, played in overtime. Now you got the Knights minus 120. Canucks and Devils, that was basically a minus 110. Canucks at home, now they're minus 120 favored against the Devils. And you saw a lot of Blue Jacket money this morning. Plus 130, we're now plus 120. Obviously, they're at home. Islanders played last night as well. So you see a lot of the back-to-back spots where teams want to fade them.
Yeah, and it's overrated, the back-to-back spots. So be careful, everybody, with the back-to-back stuff. Teddy?
So, Art, you've been with us since the very first... Was it the very first show? I know it was the very first week we had you on when we first started doing WagerTalk Today. What was that, 2020, Lawrence and I. So you are truly a friend of the show, a long-term friend of the show, and we love having you on. I want to talk some college football. First, I want to make sure you get ample time to talk about what's going on at the Westgate Superbook, who is also a friend of the show, and tell us what's going on, talk about the reduced juice options, talk about anything in any other states, whatever you want. The floor is yours, and then we'll talk a little college football.
Yeah, no, Teddy, you're right. When I first came on, there was no video. We basically did it podcast style. So, we weren't even... It
was the first week.
Yeah.
I don't remember if it was the first show, but I know it was the first week.
Yeah. Yeah, we weren't even doing video, so that's how, archaic we were back then.
Your beard was still black then.
Yeah, that's true, Teddy. Oh, man, you get put in that risk room, you start seeing a lot of grays, my man. But no, listen, guys, obviously the Westgate come down, Teddy mentioned it, a lot of reduced juice. World Series is still going. We're still pumping out our 5-cent line. So, you got Yankees minus 140 tonight, Dodgers plus 135. Listen, we're the only ones in the world giving a 5-cent line. So you got that going on. NBA's every morning, we will turn on minus 109 for the NBA. Every Monday at noon, we turn on minus 108 for college football, minus 109 for college football. So you get a lot of reduced juice options there. You can always check out the website. You can always DM me on Twitter or come to the book and ask for me, and I can explain it all to you.
And looking at the free Wager Talk live on screen right now, if you want to bet the favorite, the Westgate's the best book to bet them at. If you want to bet the dog, the Westbook's the best game, or the best place to bet them at because of that 5-cent line for World Series. Have you seen a lot of action in the World Series? You have anything worth noting for Game 5? You sweating any liability here? How did last night's game work out for you?
No, last night's game was fine for us because we actually, after Game 2, had a house player come in and drop a nice 5-figure bet on Dodgers to sweep at plus 4.25. So obviously we were sweating that out pretty heavily because obviously that could have happened last night. With the 5-cent line, and I said this last week, you see such great two-way action. You really do. You mentioned it. If you want to take the favorite, you get the best price. If you want to take the dog, you get the best price. So you see great two-way action, and you've seen the public take the over in every game. And it's no different tonight. They have taken the over in every game. Once again, another house player of ours has come in and bet every game, and he did tonight as well. A big five-figure bet over in every game. Obviously, the over is 2-2 so far with a game 5 to be played. So a lot of over money. We need the under every game in these World Series games.
Sure. 2-2 thanks to a true miracle in game 1 of this series. That was not an over until it was. Art, just a few minutes left, of course, at ArtDice21 on Twitter. Let's talk about a little bit of college football before you go. Well, you said that this card hasn't gotten the marquee games. You're not getting the marquee attraction. The week's been a little bit weird. Have you seen money come in at all? And if so, where's it flowing? Who do the pros like? Who do the Joes like? Who does Art DiCesare like when it comes to college football this week?
Absolutely. Let me just say, obviously, when you have a big card, you're always going to get action. But it's now stretched out because you got games Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So the Saturday slate just doesn't feel as thick as it normally is. Look at the public. We'll start with them. They've laid 7 with Ole Miss. They like that side. They've taken the over in the Arizona UFC game and actually have been ahead on that. They took over 55. It's now 56. And the marquee game of the week, most of these marquee games, we don't see really the sharps take any position on the game. But the public has taken a little bit of position on Ohio State at 3.5, and they've taken the money line there. Ohio State is going to be pretty popular, I think, in money line parlays as well. Looking at the sharp side, tonight, the Liberty game. They started taking over 63, hit as high as 64.5. It's now trickled back down to 63.5. So pretty good two-way action on that total, but the initial sharp money was on the over. FAU +3. This is a Friday game. Took money at home against South Florida. Now we go to Saturday. They laid 2.5 with USC at Washington. Interesting there, because to me, USC is no good. I actually would lean Washington in the game, getting the 3, but it was sharp money. UMass Mississippi State over 58, now 60. And this A&M SC total, South Carolina total, is crazy. Sharps took under 46.5, under 45.5. We're now all the way to 44 on the game. So that's a heavy move on that total. And they took South Carolina +3.5 in the game. It's now 2.5. And they like going against Wyoming every week. They laid 7 with New Mexico against Wyoming, now 7.5. That's all the sharp action.
Mic drop for Art. Thank you, my brother. Really appreciate it. Every Wednesday, Art DiCesare will be joining us. And we will always, from now on, be a longer period of time with him. Art, are you still here with us?
I'm here.
What are you betting this weekend? And then we'll say goodbye.
What am I betting? And listen, Prez and Teddy, I love the longer segment too, because we obviously get so caught up in the football, but now we can talk a little basketball, we can talk a little hockey, right. So it's nice, especially with the college basketball coming back. You know how I love that college basketball, Teddy. I know you do too. So we'll be really into the college basketball as well. As far as what I'm betting this weekend, I like the under in the Bears-Cardinals game. It has moved down a little bit, but it was as high as 45.5, 44.5, 45 right now, but I do like the under in that game. And I'm taking a little shot with Eastern Michigan at home, +8. I like over the touchdown. It is a high total, which scares me a little bit, 54. But I think Eastern Michigan can hang in there, +8.
Brilliant. Thank you for joining us, Art. Shout out to Ralph Michaels as well. No time for a daily presidential address, everybody, but I will do one tomorrow. That is for sure. Guys, again, I cannot stress how important it is to bet my 4% NHL play tonight. I'm absolutely dominating in these plays. It's over at WagerTalk. I'm going golfing. I cannot believe I'm golfing at the end of October in Toronto, Teddy. It's mind-blowing how delicious the weather has been. Thank you for doing this, brother. Take us home.
Yeah, we turned the heaters on in Vegas last night because it's all warm back east. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to spend with us here on WagerTalk Today. We'll do it again tomorrow. Same time, same channel. Between now and then, enjoy the game and best of luck with all your bets.